Right, so I think this phone's gonna die shortly, so let's see how long it lasts for. Um, Also, I don't have much time. Pardon me. So, I don't know what this shiny thing is at the top of the screen. Reflection or something. So I wanted to talk about, see how far we get with this emotion. I was talking to someone in the comments about this, and it seems as though that first releasing of the identity, the first softening of the identity, or the first movement and awakening, it opens up this space. I guess you would describe it as I would have described it as a space at the time. And that space is, in a way, impersonal. But in a way, it's more essential to what feels like personality than the thoughts. And that, call it space, allows somewhat of a capacity to experience, and a large part of that experience is following that shift is the experience of ignored emotions, emotions that were otherwise before managed or seemed to be managed by dialogue, stories, mental projections, and all of those stories were framed in self, framed in personality and ownership. My emotions, my story about them, and my ideas about why they're there, what reason external to me there is for that, and how can I control it. In that space, opens up, you could say, space isn't really a good way to describe it, but a stillness or an openness allows the emotions that seem to be like congealed or held in some energetic way by the personal narrative, or as a function in the moment held by a thought, and that thought contains the entire story of all the habitual reactions and reasons that suggest the context for that emotion, like what it is, why it's there, so on. And without that, all there is really is the emotion. And it kind of, what becomes quite obvious is that there's a reaction to emotion, a reaction to experience that feels like an internal reaction. Also a reaction to the thoughts that seem to be tied up with those emotions, the thoughts that seem to go along with or arise with the emotions. But after a while they just seem less and less connected until they're not connected at all. And the emotion is just kind of like a spontaneous, visceral, physical sensation. That part, the physical part of it, the like biological or animalistic part of it, becomes more obvious. And what becomes more obscure is the stories that go along with it. As those stories are kind of, let's say, seen to be fictions, then it's just emotion, and there's no problem in the emotion itself. There's not even any problem in the thought itself, unless there's the strong belief in a one that it's happening to or for, and the strong belief that, I can solve this by applying some sort of story to the situation, or some sort of projection or control measure to it, in order to fix something that shouldn't be, or attain more of something that is desirable, like the whole desire and aversion thing that you hear in Buddhism. What also, check my battery here, what also seems to become more apparent is, I'm going to have to plug this in down here. There we go. There's kind of like an emotional landscape that is everywhere, as in the boundaries between my internal emotions and the kind of emotional charge in the environment with other people becomes very blurred. So you end up, I guess you could call it energetics. You end up feeling everything. You end up noticing that we have these habitual patterns of behaviour and thought that are in place as mechanisms to avoid feeling like conductive emotions from other people in the environment, even from not other people. So the idea of other people's emotions and my emotions becomes blurred, and you could almost just say that it's all your emotion. It's all your experience. Like, there's no longer my experience and other people's experience, there's just experience. And in that there's just emotion. And a lot of that, you know, there's an aversion to that because it's felt as uncomfortable and undesirable, and there's an aversion there and the associated mechanisms, coping mechanisms. But you know, these are just reactions to a feeling. These are just reactions to a sensation. In the sensation, there's depth and nuance and mystery and wisdom. Eventually, there came like a curiosity, an interest, intrigue, and almost like a new hobby of. I always liken it to like flavors on your palate. This is an emotional palate, and the hobby is tasting, like, and savouring as much as possible the emotional flavours as they spontaneously appear in the experience. The orientation towards feeling that as much as possible, and with that movement, then those patterns of aversion and avoidance and preference start to dissipate. I'm not saying that there isn't a natural biological aversion to some experiences and emotion. You know, pain, for example. I mean, there can be various reactions to something that even is emotionally, viscerally, intensely painful, or you know, that's just a biological reaction. But I mean, like the whole spectrum of emotions is as an exploration, experience spontaneously appearing and morphing in different mysterious and intriguing ways, and in each of those flavours of the experience of emotion, there's wisdom that can't be put into words at all, and it doesn't need to be explained. It doesn't need to be categorized. It wouldn't be possible to do so. But in that exploration, let's say the internal exploration of emotion becomes very external, you could say, or there is the boundaries of inside and outside disappear, especially after the deepening of realization or insight, and then that exploration just starts to break down those seemingly co-arising, seemingly intertwined thoughts, stories, narratives around that emotion. So it becomes much more important. It's just feeling the emotion. In that way, it becomes more simple again, because you know, we don't have to go searching for explanations or categories or remedies. We might have to under certain circumstances, but you know, in my experience, that didn't end up being necessary. So I guess I need to go now, but I guess the main point would be to explore the emotional experience with interest and feel as much as you can, as if you are a connoisseur of the flavours, the array of tones and experiences, as if you are a collector of emotional flavours, although you can't hold on to any of them. So that's all the more reason to savour them as much as possible. Anyway, a shorter video today, but that'll do for now, and I'll talk to you next time.